Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. It is 10 after 8 o'clock. Our first guest is Mariam Jooma. I will let her pronounce the other part of her surname because I'm not getting it right. Alhamdulillah. She'll be with us in a minute or two. She is a journalist and research at Media Review Network and also has now joined the Salam Media family. So very pleased to be chatting with her this morning. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the program, Miriam. Please just remind us how we pronounce your surname.
Walaikum salam. Thank you so much for having me, Auntie Julie. It's Charikci, but I think you're getting it. You're getting it.
Not quite. I'm going to, the next time you're on air, I'm going to spell it out phonetically so that I don't get it wrong. But lovely talking to you. I hope that you enjoyed your stint with us here on Salam Media, the couple of shows that you did with us.
Alhamdulillah, it was just one, but it
Okay.
was good to be in your seat.
Yes, yes, that's right.
Alhamdulillah.
Whilst I was recuperating, I'm back, and yeah, there were some amazing people filling in for me, and I do appreciate it very, very much. So, Mariam, let's look at what's going on around the world, particularly Rwanda. And the big question is, frighteningly, that there seems to be a link between Rwanda and Israel because we understand that Israeli spiked missiles have been linked to the 13 deaths of our very own soldiers, the SANDF soldiers. What more do you know about this? And would you say that there is a direct link? What makes us believe that there are these untoward forces by Israeli, I suppose, the IDF, or just is the Israeli government directly involved here and creating even more havoc in an untenable situation as we speak?
Auntie Julie, as always, we like to start from the bigger picture. And that is that if you think about the duration of this conflict, it started pre 94. But if we look at 94 as the official starting point with the genocide as the milestone, we're talking about 30 years. 30 years of instability between the Eastern Congo and the Rwandan border, Ugandan and Burundian border as well. And so it's important to locate Israel's changing relationships with African countries during that time. Something many people don't actually know is that Israel was actually supplying the Rwandan government with arms during the genocide. So they were actually supporting the Hutu government. And there is documented evidence of this. Professor Yair Orav, actually an Israeli professor, together with an Israeli human rights lawyer, have been advocating for this information to be made public. They've done enormous research, written books, campaigned the courts about Israel's use of the concept of genocide in order to further its economic aims by supplying weapons to Rwanda, but also how it has inverted this concept between the Hutus and the Tutsis, now supporting the Tutsi government against the forces in the DRC, the FDLR. So there's a very long history, Auntie Julie, of Israel's involvement in Rwanda. And one would ask why. What's interesting, according to what I've come across, is that they considered the Tutsis to be similar to the Palestinians in the sense that they were also refugees. You have to remember this is now colonial, post-colonial, a journey of waves of refugees. So the Tutsis were actually refugees, many hundreds of thousands, in other African countries, including Egypt and North Africa. And the Israeli government looked at this presence in those Muslim countries as a threat almost akin to the Palestinian threat. And they felt that they needed to support the Hutu government to exterminate them. And so this documented evidence, as I said, is available on the internet. People are welcome to Google Professor Yair Orav, Yair Orav, Aurov, and delve into what he's uncovered in the sense of the links. Now, bringing it to the current situation, I think I'm not a defense expert, and I wouldn't be able to speak to the particular equipment that has been cited in the news stories. But I think just the general understanding of the very strong links between Rwanda and Israel can give us an indication that it is quite likely that Israel has been supporting militarily and in terms of training the M23 as well as the Rwandan army. You will also know that Kagame was the first African head of state to ever address APAC. And that has red flags all over it. Why would Rwanda, who had suffered a genocide, be addressing APAC, and under what conditions?
Okay, we need to go for an ad break. When we come back, there's just so much more to uncover. I just want to share a post from Newsroom Africa, which came through just shortly after 8. And this is how it reads. I quote, "The spike anti-tank and anti-aircraft weapons used by Rwanda were definitely produced in Israel. They were used by the American forces at some point, but they are Israeli developed weapons. These are the weapons that were used to loop missiles which killed our people," unquote. And this was a statement posted by retired SANDF Lieutenant General Maumela Motau. So I'd like you to respond to that. And then also bringing the question regarding Israel was very busy over the past year in slaughtering the Palestinian people with similar weapons, I should imagine. I'm kind of wondering, and they've always looked to America and the UK to supply the weapons to them. So they were using these weapons against innocent Palestinians and Jordanians. Did they have the reserves to supply to Rwanda, and at what cost to the Rwandan government? Or would it be some sort of a future bilateral agreement that would be payable in lieu of the weapons? They would pay via mineral rights, etc., because we do know all eyes are on the African continent because it is so rich in minerals. But let's go for that ad break, and then when I get back, you can respond to those two questions, please.
No problem.
Types, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying, or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations reservations. Call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, yet many children go to school hungry because of poverty. Penny Appeal South Africa's Breakfast Club aims to get a warm, hearty meal to underprivileged children so they can spend their day prospering in their schoolwork. Help feed a needy learner for only 5 Rand a day or 150 Rand a month. Or visit our website www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573 to find out how you can donate. Penny Appeal South Africa. Small change, big difference.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, bakkies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name. Valley's Motor Spares.
Abu Huraira narrated that he heard the Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, say, in black seed there is a healing for every disease except death. This Ramadan, experience the health benefits of this ancient blessed seed by using the Tib Black Seed range. Black seed assists the body to boost immunity, regulate blood sugar levels, reduce inflammation, and act as a potent antioxidant. Experience a holistic approach to health by introducing the Tib Black Seed range into your Ramadan routine. Available in capsules, pure cold-pressed oil, and a vapor rub. Trust Tib Health Sciences for quality black seed products. For more information, visit blackseed.co.za. Available at leading pharmacies.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back. 8:22 a.m. on News and Views this morning. My guest, of course, is Mariam Jooma Carikci. I think I've got it right this time. She's a journalist and researcher at the Media Review Network, and absolutely giving us super insight on not only the current situation, but anything, I think, as far as global politics is concerned. This is our to-go-to person. Lovely chatting to you once again. Would you like to respond to the 2 questions put to you pre the ad break?
Thank you, Auntie Julie. Yes, look, with regard to the comments made by Lieutenant General Motaung, I think, he would be much better placed in the sense of understanding the particular equipment he refers to. As I said, I'm not a defense expert, but the geopolitics definitely suggests that the likelihood of it being Israeli weapons is very high. And previously, as I mentioned, Professor Orav, his work was actually based on the fact that Israeli photographers had taken pictures of ammunition produced in Israel that was used in Rwanda. And it's also interesting to note that Israel had supplied the Serbian government during its massacre of Bosnian Muslims and its genocide as well. So the question of whether there would be, sufficient arms to be given to Rwanda, considering how much has been used in Gaza against the Palestinians, I think that raises an interesting question of what are the terms for the relationship between Rwanda and the West. It's interesting because we know that the West is actually Rwanda's biggest supporter. So we have the EU, UK, the USA, very strong supporters of the Kagame regime, despite the fact that it's literally a non-democratic society, and he has been at the helm for so many years. And so one would think to the UK immigration law, the Rwandan bill, where asylum seekers or refugees who are undocumented would be returned not to their countries of origin, but actually to Rwanda. And the Rwandan government had accepted that, for a price. And so we wonder if that price is not being outfitted with the best military equipment in order to extend their power or their their inroads into DRC.
The illegal immigrants that would be shipped and housed in Rwanda. And we do know that the UK government was going to be setting this up, whether it would have been in situations of camps or whether they would just be integrated into Rwandan society. That has fallen by, that has kind of almost gone off the table because we don't have Suella Braverman in British government any longer serving as, I think she was the Minister of Interior.
The Home Minister, yes.
Home Minister, yeah, similar to
Yeah.
what we'd have as a Minister of Interior. So unless their Home Minister now picks up where she left off, do you think there's still room for something like that? And then also, in a discussion with another political analyst a little while ago, he kind of I bemoaned the fact that South Africa is 30 years into democracy, and all we're seeing around us is large scale corruption. And as far as the country moving forward, we don't seem to be making much headway. And I was then told by that analyst that we need to use Rwanda's blueprint because they're the only country in Africa who has succeeded in, getting up on its feet after years and years and years of infighting, civil war, and everything else. And we need to be using their blueprint. And I'm wondering how you'd respond to that, wondering who is it that's propping them up. So I've really thrown a whole host of questions at you and comments. So I'll hand over to you to respond, please.
So with regard to that Rwandan asylum bill, you are correct, Auntie Julie. It has fallen to the wayside, but it hasn't been scrapped altogether. There were a lot of protests, and within the UK establishment itself, and there was actually it turned out to be, from a financial perspective, it would have been a burden on the UK government to implement. Nevertheless, the fact that there are that there are these kinds of deals that could be made, it's important to always remember that what we see in the public is not necessarily the full extent of what happens behind closed doors. And particularly with regard to the DRC, non-state actors have a lot more sway over the political process than formal actors themselves. And by this, I refer to the mining companies and to the contractors who would perhaps have concessions in return for Rwandan security, to actually just stabilize the area for them. On SABC yesterday, they had a wonderful analyst, a Rwandan analyst, who was actually the former Secretary of State, and quite high up in the military command, who is actually a critic of President Kagame. And what he suggested was that the army was always involved in making sure that areas in mineral-rich areas, they had secured the area, cleared it up for civilian contractors, foreign and local, to do their work. So there is very much a hand-in-glove relationship between the military establishment and the capitalist exploitative class globally. And so this is where I think Rwanda manages to keep itself as the darling of the West. With regard to Rwanda as an example, I think, in the early years post 94, people did look to Rwanda as a beacon of hope. There was suggestion of opening of its democratic space, the disciplined nature of their state. I mean, the people themselves, the Rwandese are considered to be quite disciplined with regard to just their service delivery and being able to take control over their own destiny as such. But I don't think that, at this point, Rwanda offers any kind of example, particularly to South Africans, because they have, aside from the stagnant nature of their political leadership, they have actually entrenched this idea of ethnicity. So whereas we in South Africa are trying very hard, and at times we fail and we are defeated, but we've tried to overcome the labels that apartheid has imposed on us. And on the contrast, Rwanda takes its lead from Israel that uses ethnicity as a weapon. So the Holocaust and the genocide are considered to be untouchable reasons for the behavior of the state. And one analyst actually called it the victims' pact. So having the two victims, Israel and Rwanda, actually having this relationship based on the fact that they manipulate their history and exploit their history for the current regime. So no, I would not be I would not be advocating for Rwanda as any example for South Africa.
So, Miriam, let's wrap up now and go back to that, to the comments by retired SANDF Lieutenant General Motau. This was what he said on Newsroom Africa this morning. He says, and I have read it. But I'll just share it again for those who might have missed it. The Spike anti-tank and anti-aircraft weapons used by Rwanda were definitely produced in Israel. They were used by the American forces at some point, but they are Israeli-developed weapons. These are the weapons that were used to loop missiles, which killed our people. So two issues here. Early on, I said that Israel was looking to the UK and America for weapons. What I actually meant is with the funding, because they do produce the weapons in their own country. And possibly other more sophisticated weapons, which they may not produce, will have been supplied by Western countries. But coming back to this statement, what do you believe South Africa is going to be doing in this situation? 15 of our soldiers were killed by these Israeli manufactured and supplied weaponry. And do we then see this as a direct target on South African soldiers? Was this deliberate that they chose to kill or wipe out South African peacekeeping forces?
Look, South Africa does make up the majority of the SANDF, of the SADC contingent in the DRC. So in terms of, just the likelihood of having the soldiers being South African, I think it's just higher because of the numbers. But indeed, there could be more sinister moves because of Rwanda's very strong links to Israel. And President Kagame has, often been seen as someone who, is not necessarily au fait with what SADC has said about the region and the moves made by SADC, because you'll remember that Rwanda is not a member of SADC. DR Congo is, and it is at the same time a member of the East African bloc as well. So Rwanda takes its cue from its neighboring countries and the region. And I think it has not appreciated South Africa's role in trying to mediate and consider South Africa an outsider to the region. So yes, as the Minister of Defense of South Africa, I would think that this would be quite a direct issue that has to be dealt with. But I think we've seen, and a very good article that was just published this morning by Stephen Groote suggested that it's actually, ironically, South Africa's democratic nature that weakens Ramaphosa's hand. So it's because we have military oversight, it's because we have parliamentary oversight that the processes will not be as swift as what the Rwandan process might be. So, and he even suggested, that no Rwandan soldier would be brave enough to play golf during a time when its fellow soldiers had fallen, which is what the brigadier was doing at the time. So here's the irony or the paradox of our democratic society is that we do have these processes, but in themselves, they can actually, in fact, prolong any action. And we know South Africa is often accused of all talk and no action. We look at the case of the NPA against the South African citizens who served in the IDF. Mounds of evidence, and yet nothing to come forward. So, in this sense, I would urge, the political leadership to take seriously the threat that Rwanda is to not only that region, but also to the work that South Africa is trying to do in countering Zionism because of its very strong relationship with Israel.
The Rwandan government has made threats to South Africa regarding our forces being um, there in a capacity of a peacekeeping force. And they have made direct threats to South Africa and directly to Cyril Ramaphosa as well. Do you think any of that would come to pass? And how do you believe we should be responding? And do you think something like this is going to be coming up in the SONA talk on Thursday as well?
If we look again historically, Ramaphosa has not been someone who would take any aggressive action. It's always been, and that is the format of our foreign policy relations. It's always been diplomacy, finding a way to get around the table. So I don't think that South Africa would necessarily take military action, but what it can do is leverage its authority with regard to its relations with the region. And South Africa enjoys very good relations with Angola and obviously with the DRC, with President Tshisekedi. And in doing so, being able to use the regional players or regional partners as a form of pressure, I think that's where South Africa would be most effective, because ultimately it is the region. I mean, we have to remember, and it's quite an astounding thing, that the DRC is bordered by 9 countries, and they have 250 different ethnicities. So what happens in the DRC doesn't stay in the DRC. And that's why it's important to have a regional solution. And this is what South Africa has pushed. It has always pushed the idea of the regional understanding or demobilization of militia from across the region. And that was actually the basis of the Lusaka Agreement, and previous to that, the Arusha Agreement, and those preceding as well.
And that's where we will leave it. It is truly a developing story and situation. I think I did ask you the question, and can we just wrap up on that question? The State of the Nation is being addressed by Ramaphosa on Thursday. Do you think that, given the seriousness of this situation, that he might touch on it? He might make some comments regarding the situation in Rwanda and the 15 soldiers that have been killed?
I think it's also important to look at how he responded to Kagame's comments. Where Kagame said that he had called the Rwandan army a militia, and this really incensed Kagame. And the response was, "Well, we're sorry. It could have been dealt with in a better way." And I think that in itself shows that if there are any comments on Rwanda, it would be, it wouldn't be as it wouldn't be aggressive, and it would actually be, I think, in my view, it would be a sense of, we as South Africa need to ensure that we bring all partners to the table in order to deal with the instability in the region. And so I think, yeah, that would probably be the way in which President Ramaphosa would deal with it.
And always the diplomat, is he not? Mariam Jooma Carikci, you are a political analyst and, of course, rather journalist and researcher at the Media Review Network. Thank you indeed. Always a pleasure talking with you. You have such a sense of what's going around the world, particularly here in Africa, and you do give us deeper insights into political situations. Go well. Salaam alaikum to you.
Jazakallah wa alaikum salam.
It is exactly 8:39 a.m. News and Views moving along, and next we are going to be talking with Ziad Ibrahim Patel. He's a human rights lawyer, and we are going to be looking at the issue around the South African situation, regarding the fierce legal onslaught against apartheid Israel at The Hague.